Hey everyone, happy Whiskey Wednesday to you, and welcome, as always, to Midnight Hatter Live. I am your host, Steven. Joining me, as always, is the lovely Adam Blue. How are you doing, buddy?
Doing good. Again, glad it's Wednesday. Glad we're getting to chat, talk Gundam, Gunpla, whatever else tends to come up. I had a lot of fun on that last episode we did. So,
Yeah, we went a little off the rails, and I think that that's kind of the beauty of what we do here.
yeah.
We've got a little show going on here on stage in the studio, so to speak. But it's always nice
Yeah.
to just kind of let the conversations go where they may. Um,
Yeah.
Shout out to all the folks in chat. Thank you for waiting patiently. We were having some technical difficulties starting up here this evening, but I think we've got them all
Yeah.
hammered out. Let us know if come across any, audio glitches, if my face starts looking robotic, anything like that.
Well, and this isn't too big of a deal for me, but the my video feed is it looks like it's kind of cut on the stream, but look, it's not about me anyway. Um, and you're going to be screen sharing, and that might fix it. But while you look at that real quick, I see Robert always in first. Ian, oh, Gundam Explained in the chat. Good to see you. Gundam Wing with a lot of numbers. Good to see you. Zionic Shadow, always good to see you. So really cool. Got a crew in already.
Yeah, good.
Hey, we got 9 likes, but hit that like some more
Hey,
if you haven't
appreciate
yet.
it. Appreciate it. Yes, as always, we are happy to have Adam on here from Gundam Explained. Dropped a hefty topic this morning on the Gundam Explained YouTube channel. As always, links down in the description below over on Gundam Explained. Um, the history of the Earth Federation, which is a pretty big hunk of meat to chew on, I would say.
Yeah, I think it's been Robert said I'm a little loud, so I will scoop my mic back. You guys let me know. But no, it's just by this time when it comes to talking about Gundam, especially Universal Century, since I really like it, like I really understand the main beats of the Earth Federation. And I like it because it's like a main faction. It's like with Star Wars. There's the Rebel Alliance, the Empire. And so I felt like it was a good time because someone actually asked in a comment for that. I was like, okay, let me do a little, it's about 20 minutes. So it's not short, but really to go through the history would be more than 20 minutes. But the
Yeah,
purpose was to kind of give a good episode sized, Gundam episode sized data dump on the Earth Federation.
yeah,
So,
yeah. I think it was a perfect little perfect way to start your Wednesday morning, I would say.
oh, yeah. Oh yeah, always. It's like a Wikipedia. When people put out YouTube videos, just reading data and information. Always love that stuff.
Yeah, I tend to get into those types of YouTube holes where you stumble on a topic you really like, and then you kind of go down the rabbit hole of everywhere where that topic could lead you. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, hope
Oh
everyone's
man.
having a good evening and a great week so far. I feel like I'm forgetting something, but we'll move on past it. I'm sure it wasn't important. I do have some exciting new sort of techniques. Well, what's old is new again. Probably the first video that I ever made on this YouTube channel was about this product, but I am going to talk about the things that I've learned using it. And, well, I'm not going to bury the lead any further. Um, so there was, when we first started this Hi-Zack project that I've been working on, which now we're kind of coming back around to that after last week's adventure in miniature painting. It was brought to my attention by the Shirt Lad, a friend of the channel. I can't wait to have him on the channel at some point because I think he'll have some interesting video game
Oh.
perspective for us. But he
Yeah.
mentioned that the beam rifle that we should be using for this pre-production Hi-Zack actually comes with our high grade, because it's kind of like a Hazel rifle, but you know
Oh
I've
yeah.
got the high grade Marisai, and the high grade Marisai rifle is basically the same rifle but with a different ammo clip.
Like either top or bottom. I forgot. I think top or something.
Yeah, the ammo clip on the bottom,
Oh,
which
yeah.
I've
Oh,
pulled
okay.
off for the purposes of this um
Sweet.
of this exercise. But you see, I didn't want to leave my poor Marisai unarmed, so I wasn't going to just recycle that. So what I went ahead and did, and I'm going to bring up the screen share here to show you just some of the photos. I didn't want to do this part on stream because it actually takes a lot of time, but I used some Oyamaru, which is a thermally activated plastic mold material. Um, if you're kind of into hobby of Gunpla or miniature making in general, you're probably familiar with like a two-part silicone rubber mold. You can make copies of your miniatures or Gunpla parts using silicone, and it does have the best detail replication because it's a liquid. It can kind of seal up around those things. But you can make molds out of this melted plastic, which you just kind of melt it down in hot water and form it up around
Oh.
the part that you want to make a copy of. So what I did, and this is the part of the process that's new to me that I think yielded some pretty positive results, is so I've got a little Lego mat that I put together, a little sort of mold box around the beam rifle that you can see here. From there, I filled the bottom of the mold box with some just plasticine clay, some like Play-Doh type material. It's basically a clay that doesn't cure ever. Um, and
Oh.
what we do with that is we actually mold it up around the part that we're trying to make a copy of. So in this case, we push the beam rifle down into the clay, kind of create a base, and then from there, we melt down that plastic and using and I found this technique from like a bunch of Warhammer miniature people on YouTube, but you make a basically like a Lego press that you can press down the plastic and get like a real tight vacuum fit around the part that you're trying to copy. From there, you just flip it over and make the second part of it for your two-part mold.
That seems like almost genius in a way. Like maybe two's not a big deal, but that seems like such an amazing, almost easy way to like replace anything that you might accidentally break,
Oh yeah.
lose, or want to modify.
Exactly. So the first video I ever made on YouTube was a tutorial of using this to copy Gunpla parts, but I've refined my technique a little bit, obviously, because previously I would not use a mold box. I would just kind of like press the part down in it, and it just
Oh.
wasn't great. But I still highly recommend this product because it's about a third of the price of your silicone and it's reusable. Once you're done with this mold, you can melt it again and
Oh.
make a new mold onto another part. So from there, what I went ahead and did, let's switch over to my camera view here so that I can show off the parts that we made. I took some two-part clear resin and get the camera to focus on it. I made one copy of our beam rifle. Unfortunately, I had some air bubbles in the mold, so there's one air bubble here up on the side of the gun, and then of course the barrel didn't quite
But
copy
is
over.
yeah, it really doesn't look all that noticeable. And is the air bubble to where it protrudes and causes the thing to expand, or is it just hidden in there?
No, it's just kind of hidden in the side of it. So I mean, after painting it, you wouldn't see that at
Yeah.
all.
Oh, that's
Um,
good.
but the detail
That's good.
replication on this has been really, really good.
Yeah.
So I wanted to compare that. I went ahead and this one's not quite done curing yet, but I went ahead and took some of our mold putty and before we were using it to sculpt, but here I actually pressed it into the mold. And there's pros and cons to that, obviously. I think that the detail replication is not quite as good, but the mold was filled and I didn't have any air bubbles because I could press it out and kind of smooth everything. I've got a
And
little bit of
real quick,
flashing. Oh, go ahead.
this was the putty from last time that has the two different substances that you have to put together, or was this a completely different type of putty?
Same exact putty, the two-part epoxy. And but
Wow.
again, multiple uses for the same product. And of course, for all of this stuff, I actually remembered to put links down in the description prior to starting the stream. So if you're interested in picking up some of this stuff, the Oyamaru, the melted plastic, it's like $8 on Amazon. So,
Wow.
like I said, it's a third of the price of your silicone molds and reusable. So if you're just getting started out, like making copies of parts like this, you've got a good head start.
Let me ask you, is this stuff, does it turn out durable enough? Like if you wanted to reproduce joints? Like, let's say you have a Gunpla joint that broke.
I would. So I guess the politically correct answer, the safe answer would be I would not do that, if only because it's a lot more brittle than a polycap piece
Okay,
might be.
I
But
see.
in theory, you could do the same thing, but use got some of it over here. I think I do, and I think anybody who's made miniatures has probably seen this stuff. Um, it's a two-part epoxy. It's commonly known as green stuff. And it's used for sculpting miniatures and sculpting like tiny figures and stuff like that. It works almost the exact same as the epoxy putty. It's just it tends to have a little bit more of a flexible finish to it. It feels a little gummier. I would make
That's,
polycaps out of this before I made it out
oh,
of the
interesting.
just
Interesting.
so you know.
Yeah.
There's a product for everything, I swear.
Well, I've learned a lot just from each video I do with you. Like, it seems like, you just put your mind to it. You could really customize any Gunpla however you want. This stuff is out there, it seems like. You're showing me.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. There's definitely an application or two in this case. Like I said, we're using some of the mold putty. I have cleaned up some of the molding on head piece that we worked on during week 2. I've kind of shortened up that snoot so that it doesn't look as much like
Yeah.
a Doan Zaku, but
Yeah.
and I've also used a bit of that putty to hold the LED unit that we are going to be using in place.
Mm,
So the head is just
yeah.
about finished. I'm just waiting for the putty to cure, and then we're going to reseal up the head and paint it up. I'll probably use a little bit of masking tape to cover up the eye before I spray it down, because I don't want to, obviously spray um the glass mono eye that we created
Oh, that you made with
with
the
the
beam
beam
saber
effect parts.
runner. Yeah, that was great. Oh, by the way, Robert is saying your sound is a little low. I did check and it did seem like it. I
Oh,
don't know if
well, that's no
yeah,
good.
not it's not too bad, but I did a quick spot
Let
check.
me see if I can crank myself up a little bit. It might be I'm a little further from the microphone than I usually am, and that might help out. Let me know if that works out a little bit better. Um, I'm like juggling working with the camera and the microphone, everything in my
Yeah,
face while I'm trying to work
I
on these.
know.
But
Fixing the video
that's
stuff.
why it's always nice having someone in second chair to troubleshoot these things with me live.
Yeah, I get it. But anyway, oh, and seeing Trickovec 15, hope I didn't miss too much.
Hey,
Also,
Shirt
what's up?
Lad, the man himself. So yeah,
Oh,
he was the
cool.
one that recommended the Marisai beam rifle, and
Hmm.
that's the reason that we made a copy of it, because we don't want to leave our Marisai unarmed for the future ahead.
Yeah, that is really cool. I really was thinking in my mind, like, oh, he's gonna, have to use up that rifle, but hey, it's okay. It's for a good cause. But yeah,
Yeah.
making a copy,
Well,
that's like
we
sick.
used to talk
That
about video games a lot here on the channel, and I'm gonna quote some speedrunner strats to you. It's a infinite gunpla exploit that we that we're channeling in order to
yeah,
maximize our runtime.
like yeah, it makes me even think I would love to get like just a GM and like just make a mold of it in just some generic position and then just make tons of copies and just build an army. Like
Yeah, yeah, and you could absolutely do that with
amazing.
just a little bit of Oyumaru, because once you make as many copies as you need of the part that you copy first, you move on to the next one and you just reuse that same mold
Yeah,
box. And
that's
that's the
excellent.
beauty of using the Lego boxes too. But
Yeah.
today, I did finally get in the mail a little bit of plastic card, or plot plate. There's again link in the description to the kind that I got. I got a pretty inexpensive brand, but it comes in a variety of thicknesses, which I'm very excited about, because some of the plastic that we're going to be trying to create here is going to need to be a little bit more flexible, a little bit curved, but other parts are going to need to be a little bit more rigid. We are going to have to build up
Oh yeah.
the magazines that plug onto the beam rifle, we're going to have to build those up out of plot plate. And what my goal is to stack several layers of card together to make the thickness of the magazines, and then cut them up and shape them into the size that we need. And then, since we are going to need a couple of them, make a copy. And
Oh yeah, nice.
so yeah, I mean the technique recycling is definitely great. Oh, and one added benefit
Yeah.
that I have to throw in about the Oyumaru before we move on is that you don't have to worry about resin curing on 3D printed materials. So one of the big issues that I've had in the past when it comes to 3D printing stuff and then trying to make a silicone copy of it is that the UV cured resin, if you don't clean it really, 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 really well, it will inhibit the curing of silicone. So if I were to make a pour over mold using silicone on a 3D printed resin piece, there's a good chance that either A, I wouldn't capture all the details well enough, or B, it would just not cure. And then I pull the mold apart and it's just gooey. It's a
Just
gooey mess inside.
interesting.
But
Huh.
this stuff you don't have that problem with. So anything that's 3D
Wow.
printed, you can fuse it up, doesn't stick to it. It's pretty impressive stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds like it.
But yeah, so
Y-
I've got some strips of plot plate that I've cut up already into just a variety of different widths because I think we're going to have some different applications. And tonight, I think we are going to start bulking up the torso pieces because I think we mentioned when we first started that the torso is going to need a lot of girthiness. Is that
Yeah. Yeah, it was like a wide boy. He was wide, which is interesting. So it's like you got to be creative with that. And so how familiar are you with using the plot plate? Like, are you like confident? Like, or do you think you're gonna have to play around a bit?
Absolutely not. I've never used plot plate. So
Oh,
this will be
sweet.
this will be a fun experiment for both of us.
Yeah. So
Um,
starting with the magazine's probably the best way to go.
I would have thought so, but you know what? I'm gonna dive in and I'm gonna do the difficult stuff first. I've got my
Oh,
digital calipers over here so that I can measure up exactly, the right widths and everything, so that we can get the correct scaling. But aside from that, I am gonna just dive into it, and we just are gonna hope for the best.
yeah, I think you got it. I mean, the head alone so far.
Oh man, so
Zionic Shadow even says, "Watch Hatter nail it the first time."
now I don't know if you guys have checked out the Discord lately, but Zionic Shadow did drop that Zionic Epion build. At least
Yeah,
at least insofar as like the body and the core kit. I haven't seen the weapons yet, so I'm looking forward to seeing that.
I haven't
Uh,
either. But yeah, the painting on it looks good.
yeah, looks
And
fantastic.
Trikovec agrees. Hey, and Rogue New Type, good to see you. Um, but he's saying plot plate is great if you know what you're doing, LMAO. But even if not, it makes for a great stream.
Yeah, it's gonna be a learning experience for us together. What I am gonna go ahead and do is my plan. Since we kind of already have the detail that we want on the side skirts, this is one of the things that we mentioned week one in the planning phase, is that the details on the side skirts are pretty much there. We just need to add a little bit of weight, a little bit thickness
Mhm.
to them. So what I'm thinking is if I punch a hole through this plot plate and sort of mount the side skirt to the plot plate, then we can kind of add that thickness to the backside of it. Instead of layering stuff on top of it, we'll kind of build it up from the backside, and then we'll get that thickness that we're looking for and kind of reshape it, because I think it has a little bit more of an octagonal shape to it, whereas this side skirt is a little rounder.
Okay, so to get that straight, you're not necessarily going to make the skirt thicker, but the part that plugs in, you're going to make it thicker so that it looks bigger.
Yeah, basically. I think that's
Oh, wow.
probably.
And then, but you'll use the plot plate to shape it, though, like it looks on the original. So
Yeah, we'll kind of shape the
interesting.
outside of it. At least that's how I'm going to try and use it.
That seems smart because I was thinking of just layering on top of the whole thing over and over until it looks right. But that would be Um, I mean, that could be fun, but
Yeah.
this could be more efficient.
I mean, I am not the most confident in my panel line scribing. So, as much as I can, I'd like to reduce the amount of panel lines that I have to carve into the
Mm.
piece. And what I'll do, I think I can probably, once I get this on, I'm just going to measure out exactly how much I need. Well, not exactly. I'm just going to go ahead and slice it on here. I'll try and keep everything in view here. I suppose I can use some of these lines and maybe cut like, yeah, a little bit more than an inch.
And Trigovec is saying also, I dumped all those UC unit icons into the second or into the 2D asset channel, Sentinel Victory, you name it. So yeah, those of you looking for that, it's there. Or if you haven't, joined the Discord for that.
Yeah, yeah, of course. And thank you for sharing those, Shirt Lad or Trikovic, whatever you prefer to go by while guesting in chat. Um, obviously between Gunpla and the G5E D&D conversion that I've been working on, most of the server consists of people that are trying to play Gundam D&D, which we try to share as much content and assets there as we can to make running your games a little easier. So there we go. That's punched on there, and basically I'm just going to kind of trim around it and shape it up the way I want.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
But yeah, so I mean that's a great place to, if you are, interested in playing a Gundam tabletop role-playing game. There's a lot of we've talked about tabletop gaming a little bit before, you and I, Adam. But I think that Gundam as a franchise typically lends itself a little bit more readily to, a tabletop warfare game, kind of like a BattleTech or a Warhammer or something like that, like a tabletop miniatures game. And
Yeah.
there are some good rule sets out there for doing that. Mobile Frame Zero, for those of you who have not heard of it, it's a Lego building. Where did I put the line on that one? There's a Lego building miniatures warfare game called Mobile Frame Zero, where you kind of build your
Oh
own
wow,
mecha and have like skirmish battles. There is also, of
that's cool.
course, Mobile Suit Skirmish, which is a Gundam specific, just a fan rule set out there for a tabletop miniatures game. But as I said when I first started the D&D conversion, is I wanted to play something that was a little bit more like a D&D style like role-playing game as opposed to like, a miniatures warfare game.
Yeah, and I guess because in Gundam anyway, there's those very interesting character reactions and how people would react to each other in any situation, and you can really only recapture that in a D&D style setting. So David Jaffe, I brought him up, guy that created God of War and Twisted Metal. He has his own YouTube channel. He's very funny, and he this past weekend, I think it was, or this week, I think it was this weekend, he did his first online D&D, and he hired a person to be the dungeon master, but he wanted to kind of be the dungeon master light. He knew what was
Okay.
going on. He wanted to contribute by doing voices, and uh I was watching some of it because I'm learning more about playing these tabletop games, and it's just interesting the conversations they have, because I don't remember the story exactly, but there was this woman they found in this house tied up, part of their adventure, and they were figuring out what to do with her, like, because I guess there was something where this woman could kill them if they're not careful, so they had to like plan and strategize what to do next. And it was pretty interesting because it wasn't related to fighting, it was related to just choices.
Yeah.
And so that's what then led me to think the then for D&D, the best I think franchise for that would be JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. And I know that sounds weird, but what happens is in the show they come up against an enemy that has a particular interesting ability that no one else has. And what the episode really consists of, the characters trying to figure out how to overcome that interesting ability. It's a stand, that they call them the stands. And so
Right.
a lot of times in the show, JoJo will choose to do something that I was like, wow, that is pretty out of the box and pretty crazy. The writers obviously come up with the stuff. And I'm like, that reminds me of, lately this D&D stuff I've been taking in where it's like, what is a crazy way we can get past the scenario? And really it would be up to the dungeon master to say, oh yeah, that checks out. You got past it. Or it could be, well, no, because they can do this. It's almost like it could be a strategy puzzle game, almost like a those escape rooms
Oh yeah.
in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, I did my first escape room only a couple of months ago, and
Oh,
that
cool.
was a lot of fun. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I think that you've nailed the appeal of these kind of tabletop role playing games exactly, because there are rules for combat in these types of games. Obviously, like there probably has to be, but combat is not supposed to be the be all end all of the game, right?
Right.
Your interactions, the benefit of playing a game where you have, so to speak, a human computer, right? Because if you were playing a video game, everything is boiled down to algorithmic interactions with, this stat, that variable, this input.
Yeah.
The benefit of playing a game like D&D or any tabletop role-playing game, for that matter, is that you basically have this human computer that's sitting there and you can put in any input you want. It's not just a matter of like push X to enter, press F to pay respects, that sort of thing. It's like, well, here's what I want to do. How would I go about doing that? And then the person kind of explains it for you.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't know if this is ever in a D&D, but like in real life, the government tends to promote marriage because there are some benefits to it in life. So I wonder if like in a D&D they ever make scenarios where a relationship is a benefit. Like if you decide you want to fall in love with someone and see if they reciprocate, and then like what if you can like yeah, and then what if further on in this game you are then making battle decisions based on your relationship.
I mean, that would
Like I feel like that's an interesting way to make the game very much like, whatever can
that
happen.
might be a little too much like real life.
Yeah.
No, I
It's
always.
just
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, it reminds me of again, like I go back to Gundam and I love the storylines where, and they don't unless there's an example I'm missing. Usually they do a good job with the love interest. It could be as stupid as cats, cots, and quests.
Or
But or
Hathaway and
wait,
Quest.
yeah, Hathaway quests. But Sarah and Cots, I
Sarah
was
and
thinking,
Cots,
right?
yeah.
Sarah, yeah, and it's interesting because then those relationships drive the story usually in directions that are not intended, and
Very true.
that seems to happen more than a lot of times. Relationships seem to be just a well, here's the human element, but it really has no real complete bearing on a story. But I can see where tabletop can pick up that. But who am I? I've played half of a game once, so this could be normal.
Well, that's it's interesting because like that's kind of where you get the situation with Rekua in Zeta Gundam. Is that's the first time that you have someone in Gundam, to my knowledge, that makes a decision based on relationships as opposed to based on some like ideological bend. People have
Yeah,
these ideas that we're appealing to this grander ideal and this utopian society that we want to create. And meanwhile she's sitting there saying like, well, I'm going to go with him because he paid me the most attention and I was expressing my feelings for you and you shunned me, so.
which is crazy because Rekka was doing spy work essentially, and that could be another interesting thing to do in a D&D game. Someone could be acting like a spy and then realizing that they prefer this. But what? Yeah. So with Rekwa, that's what happened. Because sometimes to be honest, I hated when that happened because I
I know.
liked the character and I was like, no, 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 she's not falling for this guy. But I think it's okay because that's just one character out of a whole bunch. And Emma was a great opposite of that, where she was doing her own thing
Yeah.
because she wanted to, and a guy showed her interest in, and she was like, okay, she didn't really make it a big deal or anything, she was just like, well, good. Rankin, I think was his name,
Oh
the
yeah. Oh, poor Henkin.
AU,
And
yeah,
I
Rankin, yeah.
mean, the worst commander since Admiral Holdo. We're just gonna. I want to defend my love interest using this whole ship full of crew members.
Yeah, yeah, that's another then example of making that choice. Yeah, so I guess they showed it. Yeah, Rekwa making that choice, and then the AU captain, was he a commander? Actually, yeah, because Quattro was the captain.
You know,
Well, I guess it kind of.
I think there was a heated debate on the Discord server the other day about the ranking structure in Gundam, because it really does
Oh,
not mirror anything in real life
in real life,
very well.
yeah,
Unfortunately. So it's hard to
yeah, they
tell,
probably
like,
just said lieutenant,
what's that?
commander,
Commander?
not
Yeah.
just randomly throwing out roles in front of names,
Yeah,
not
everyone's
really
just
thinking
kind of
of structure.
making up ranks as they go along. Because it seems odd to me that sometimes ensign. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Ensign seems like it would be below a petty officer, right? Yet somehow Shiro was
I
the
don't know.
commander of the 8th MS team.
Yeah, that I did pick up as being kind of odd, but I mean, then again, he was 24. I was reading that the other day, and he's like the oldest of these protagonists. So it's
Older
like,
than
okay,
Sanders?
well, how old was Sanders?
Well, I don't know. It just he seemed older.
Oh no, yeah, no, I just meant
Oh,
usually in Gundam, like the main Gundam pilot, main
it's
characters,
like
like
15.
16, yeah, 15, 13 in some cases. So for him to be 24, I think, yeah, we are trying to find out who's the oldest antagonist, and I think it was either him or Domon. Domon from
Ah,
Viewfinder.
good old G
But I
Gundam.
wanted to bring up, someone was bringing up okay, Robert, anyone made a Marvel D&D game system, and then it was Dr. Squiggums said they did, Rob. It's called Mutant and Masterminds. So,
Yeah, Mutants and Masterminds is a good one. There's actually a branded one from the 80s called Marvel Superheroes, which, it had some benefits to it, some drawbacks. It was a pretty complicated system as far as I remember.
hmm. And Dr. Squiggums saying just do what Star Wars does. If they're a new type, then they automatically are commanding officer of the ship, which, thinking back, yeah, remember even Anakin, like any Jedi, like how much training did Anakin get to then be a commander, of an army? I mean, I don't know. Yeah, that is interesting. I never really dived into that and took it apart, but yeah, it is a little more. I love, yeah, it makes me think of Amuro and how like they're just forcing him to fight. He's a new type, he's the best one, but they're not like making him commander. They're just
Right.
like, go out there and fight.
They just boss him around. Even,
Yeah.
it's one of those things where it's like, are you guys scared of new types, or do you want to control new types? Because the way you're acting, it's kind of like that show The Boys, or the comic book, where you've got these corporate goons that are trying to control these superheroes, and it's like, are you sure that you want to tell these guys what to do if you're so terrified of them?
Yeah, that is an interesting dynamic in, like, I haven't seen the comic, but I've watched the show, The Boys. I think it's great. And I like that dynamic, but sometimes I'm like, how is it that they're not doing anything? And then they'll sometimes pull something to make you like then understand, okay, although I don't completely buy it. Like Homelander could just do whatever he wants.
Right.
But that reminds me, and I don't know if this has been done in, and I'll say UC Gundam for now. Thinking of narrative, they do dive into, kids that are being manipulated and controlled. And there was the Phoenix, which was kind of on its own, but they've never really had, and I feel like this would be a great idea, a cyber new type that goes completely crazy and wipes out anybody. So then Neo Zeon and Earth Federation have to team up to take out this like crazy cyber new type that maybe got a hold of this badass prototype that Anaheim was working on, but it wasn't for anyone yet. Here's a story. And you know what? Because they talk about the Char clone, so in narrative, Zoltan is a failed Char clone. I love that idea. Like he's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
The idea would be you get a failed Char clone. It'd be cool if it was a female Char clone. Like they did a clone of Char. They have all these test tube failures. One's a female, but it grew to be perfect, except she didn't like being controlled. She cared less about space noids and cared more about freedom for cyber new types. There we go. I'm just coming up
I
with
was
this
gonna
stuff. I
say,
gotta write this down.
basically, you are describing some great scenarios that I think would make excellent Gundam 5e like
There we
RPG
go.
modules to play.
There we go. I like that.
I am gonna hold on to these scraps when I'm cutting them away because I think that I can probably use them for things later. But
Yeah, little bits, because I think there were some skirts that had little bits on them.
there we go. But yeah, I mean that's I'm glad that I didn't love narrative, but you know, I did love that aspect of narrative that it kind of rounded out some of those ideas that they had explored early on, but never kind of
Right.
they never kind of put a nice bow on the end of that. Like, you know, wait, did we clone Char? Like, you know, who is this Zoltan guy? You know, full frontal. Like, why did we do
Yeah.
this?
It would be neat if they had an official, like, here is the story behind cloning Char. They got the essence out of the Sinanju, or no, it would have been the Sazabi, or something. You know, who knows?
If only there was this guy with a YouTube channel where, you know, he explains Gundam lore.
Actually, that's a good idea to explain it in terms of an open question.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. Like, bring up scenarios, like what could be the possibilities here?
Yeah,
I do like the idea of the failed clones. It reminds me of Alien 4,
Oh,
Alien
yeah.
Resurrection with Ripley.
Kill me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, think of having like some tissue that is the consciousness of Char reproduced, and they just insert the tissue into a mobile armor because they couldn't grow it into a humanoid. I don't know. There's all these random crazy things that could happen.
Yeah, well, and you know, it kind of makes you wonder. Like, we discussed on Gundam Explained podcast last week. You know, the parentage of Glemmy, and like, well, you know,
Yeah.
was Glemmy secretly connected to the Zabi family? Was Glemmy supposed to be the perfect Giran clone? You know,
What if he was a Char clone that they were first testing because they don't know where Char went after the original or something? And it was accelerated aging, so it didn't work out right because they were trying to get him old enough to partake. I don't know. I love that idea though.
oh yeah, absolutely. I think that there's some rich fertile ground there for exploration. I think we're probably going to need a couple of extra plates to thicken these up even more because I mean we've essentially doubled the thickness, but I think we should probably go for triple the thickness on the side skirts. What do you guys think?
Hey, I I like your thinking. The more time put into it, it's going to turn out even better.
Well, and my thinking is that it's always easier to add more than it or no, it's always easier to take away than it is to add more once you're done. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's kind of yeah, the more material you have to work with, you can kind of carve away at as far as sculpting goes. But again, you know, this is my first time working with pla plate and trying to get this to fit right. I think I've been applying, you probably, you know, while we've been talking, I've been applying some of our Mr. Cement, the plastic cement, to try and fuse these plastic pieces together and, you know, get them into like at least a semi rigid body that we can kind of sand and work with, because, you know, I don't want the pla plate kind of flying all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff though.
Now that said, I measured out the chest. The sides of the chest plate are just under 7 millimeters wide. So I'm thinking that, a nice 7 millimeter piece of plate there that would kind of bulk up that chest piece. If you want, we can hop back over into the screen share view where I've got our artwork. I've had this pulled up, the whole time, just so you guys know. I'm not just,
Winging
freehanding
it.
it.
I think it was this big.
Um, we do want to kind of sculpt out that chest a little bit more, make it a little squared off as opposed to the round finish that the kit comes with.
Yeah.
I'm actually debating if I hop back over into our camera view. I'm actually debating because you've got this kind of there's this kind of ridge on the side of the breastplate where it kind of starts to taper down towards the front. And I'm thinking that if we add just a little bit of pla plate right here and kind of press it against this side piece here, we can kind of fill that out. Oh, if I don't jack up my camera here. We can kind of fill out that chest piece and square it off. And then if we need to sand it down, we can sand it down after the fact, but it would kind of add a little bit more of that body. Whereas right now it's kind of tapered down to a point. We kind of add a little bit of extra to, thicken it up.
Yeah. Okay, that looks great. When you were explaining that and talked about the sanding, that's again, you can have excess, but just sand away as needed.
Exactly.
So yeah, shape it. Yeah. Hey, and Jedi Sailor, good to see you. Saw that you jumped in. And it's funny because she brought up Ahsoka. She was super young when she was a commander in the Clone Wars. Let's see.
So now,
God,
did
I
they
saw
ever explain
something.
that, like, the reason for Ahsoka's high rank? I mean, it kind of makes sense for Anakin, right? Because he's supposed to be the chosen one,
Yeah.
but
You know what? I've watched all the Clone Wars and I thought I was pretty well versed in it, but other than her just being maybe exceptional with using the Force, she was able maybe to pass all her trials. Um, Salem might know actually. But Trikovec is saying, speaking of Double Zeta, one of my Double Zeta headcanons is that Camille told Judo to beat up Wong Lee during the handshake when he was a vegetable. Hmm.
Yep. I like to believe that Wong Lee is still the only, I would say Camille is undefeated in Mobile Suit Combat, but is probably what, like 27-1, because Wong Lee gave him a good smack.
Oh, and never really got back at him compared to everyone else.
True.
I guess is that what he's referring to? Yeah. Huh. Yeah, that's interesting. I've never really explored that character as much, but he is a pivotal part actually of all that.
He is, yeah, for sure.
That's
I think that and over on my Patreon, over on my Discord server, I kind of lovingly name the supporters section for the Patreon members, the YouTube members, etc. Is called McDaniel's or Luo and Company. Because it could be, in honor of good old Wong Lee.
What did he eat at McDaniel's?
That was where Quattro, where Quattro and Camille met Wong Lee was at a McDaniel's restaurant.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, okay. So that's pretty cool. I totally forgot about that.
Which also, if we're gonna talk about tabletop games and like Gundam 5e, one of the big concerns was like currency, right? Like, how am I going to measure how much currency players have? What kind of currency do they use in Gundam? There's really not a lot of information on that, and maybe you can correct me, being the Gundam Explained guy.
Yeah, it was okay. Here it is, Gilla.
Okay, see, I'm glad that you found the same information that I did. Is in Double Zeta they refer to Gilla
Yeah.
as a
Yep.
currency
And
that
I want to say that was even the first episode.
yeah,
If I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that is the only canonical reference that we have to some form of, you know, space currency that they use. I'm not sure exactly what the exchange rate is between that and US dollars, but
They say there's no way of knowing. They don't have that much information, although it is divided into 100 Luke. So there's another Luke, like Luke Skywalker.
huh.
So I guess there's a connection there. But um, it says something about it was brought up again when Tomman, who was that? I don't remember that guy. Oh yeah, okay, yeah. I guess not a big character. And his fisherman companions charged the Argama 5,000 gilla in order to lead them to a safe harbor.
That sounds
Hmm.
sounds familiar.
Yeah. So I guess in that way, I've spoken about it a little bit. Hmm. Let's see.
But yeah, Gundam
Oh,
Mysteries.
yeah, Trikovec is saying, to my recollection, there was another reference to UC money in 0081 in the pocket when Bernie buys a ticket. Okay, I'll have to check that out again. Um, yeah, huh. Well, very cool. Anyway, where were you going with the money thing? To incorporate that?
Oh yeah, for incorporating it into Gundam 5e, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, we definitely needed some form of currency to use as not only as a balancing mechanic, obviously things cost money, and so that's one
Yeah.
way of balancing out any game, video game,
Yeah.
tabletop game, it's you can only get what you can afford, but yeah, that was, obviously people have talked about like, oh, well, why didn't you use credits? Why didn't you use dollars? And I was like, look, the only thing I've got is Gila, and the only
Yeah.
the only amount that I've got is like, I think it was, I don't remember exactly how much Gila a McDaniel's hamburger cost, but I want to say it was something ridiculous. It was pretty close to like
Oh,
yen.
oh, is there something out there for that?
Yeah, I believe Char, oh sorry, Quattro, bought a burger for, I want to say it was 50 Gila. Um
Hmm.
I can't remember the exact episode, the exact scene, but in Zeta at one point when he's at a McDaniel's, it's
Yeah, trying to search on Google McDaniel's in Gillum. Google has no idea what I'm doing.
probably thinks you had a stroke.
Yeah, I think so. Let's see. Oh, Jedi say brought up a good point. I always figured that Xeon would have developed its own currency when they declared independence from Earth. Yeah, I bet they had to have, but it's probably just not listed anywhere.
There's also the fact that in Char's counterattack, the Earth Federation buys
Oh,
Axis from Char using gold bars.
yeah.
So
So
it's worth
interesting.
considering that, yeah, they probably did not have interchangeable currencies even with like the Republic of Xeon, because it's like, what good is your Federation Gila gonna do for us out in Sweetwater?
Yeah, and considering the future, where does currency go in the future? Like, will there be a point where physical paper or metal coins are really just gone and everything are just digital transactions, or like with the gold, some actual thing of value? Which is that really value? I guess it really just depends on what people need. You would think food and water to some degree, but I guess the higher ups, they have all the food and water they need. For them, it's
Yeah,
hoarding wealth.
I remember a rather how do I put this politely? A rather dim-witted economist once suggested of cryptocurrency that, like, should aliens ever come to Earth, they would never want to use our cryptocurrencies if we were to adopt those as a formal currency. He said that, oh, they would definitely want to trade in precious metals. And what got me was, I was like, well, if aliens ever came to Earth, how do we know that gold would be as valuable to them as it is to us?
I would even think currency would be a moot subject. Like I almost feel like that's just a construct we have for society to run the way it is at this level,
Yeah,
which might be considered primitive. It might be where there's not a need of divi- dividing currency among people based on what they're able to achieve and then get things that way. You would think a future advanced civilization that could travel the stars, everyone would have equal whatever resources.
yeah. Because I mean,
Maybe
currency
not.
is basically just a reflection of labor. That's all it is. It's a
Yeah,
token that represents, how much
that's
labor
right.
you've put towards something. So the idea that like currency should have its own inherent value is kind of silly because we can argue about what has value and what doesn't. I think the reason that it was
Exactly.
precious metals at one point is because the idea is that no matter what, your token that represents your labor would always have some
Always.
intrinsic value. Um,
Yeah, and if we look at ancient Sumerian texts, they talk about the Anunnaki came down to mine gold. I don't
See, you guys thought you were coming in here for a Gunpla stream, and little did you know we were
Well,
going to
there's
be
even
talking about.
weird no, there's weird myths about making gold into a powder and then apparently ingesting that is good for you. I haven't seen any truth to that anywhere, but apparently that is kind of a reused kind of myth for
Interesting.
ancient cultures. Yeah. They'd carry it around as a powder and just ingest it every once in a while.
Huh.
And there's supposed to be something to do with gold um, powder. I don't know.
It's not something I've tried before, but maybe.
Yeah, preliminary study of the effective ingestion of gold on blood. I guess some blood chemistry was tested to use gold therapy. So there's something there. Something there.
Yeah, yeah.
Gold as a rejuvenator. Hmm. I don't know. This is getting pretty deep.
Can it stop hair
I'm
loss?
probably gonna.
Because I'm kind of concerned about that.
Oh, that you would think so. But then again, hair is not even needed. I would think people that are losing their hair are probably more evolutionarily along,
I mean, they're
right?
they're definitely more aerodynamic.
Yeah. No, it's funny because I guess really, if we're going to talk about today, what does our hair help us with? Like right now, it's really just how we portray our looks. Uh, I mean, it's really, and it doesn't really matter. I mean, look at Jason Statham. That guy is a badass. I'd hang out with him all day. He has no hair.
and handsome as a devil. Thank you for the sub there, Jerome. Appreciate you
Yeah.
hanging out with us.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, right when we were starting to get into some interesting territory too.
It's like, this is to my liking. Subscribe.
I don't know about this Gunpla stuff, but these guys, I like the cut of their jib.
No, it's cool.
No, but like I said, that's the beauty of what we do here on Wednesdays is like, we're having fun, we're building Gunpla, but we're also, exploring some grander topics inspired by Gundam, which
Yeah.
I think has its own merit.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. So how's that been going since we've been talking?
It looks like we're coming together a little bit. Obviously, let's see if I can get a little clearer view on what we've accomplished here. So, like I mentioned, I went ahead and filled in that side piece, with a little bit of the plot plate on either side, and it really did kind of add that extra body to which we are going to mount the additional plates on the front top of the chest piece. It's going to be a little bit tricky with this side since it's got the that little, I guess it's supposed to be like an emergency light, which, come to think of it, I think it might actually be cool if I punch a hole in there and from the inside mount a second LED. So that we can
Yes.
get that little red glow coming out of the chest as well.
Yeah, I agree. And would you, for that size, would you use the same technique
Yeah, I mean, I'd
of using
probably
the
go with
runner?
that same, actually, let me think I need to hop over here for just a sec.
Sure. Um, let's see. Xeon was too busy dropping colonies than to worry about currency. Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Who needs currency when you've got colonies?
Colonies that you can just make expendable at will. Like,
I always like to joke that everyone calls Xeon space Nazis. I prefer to think of them as the American Revolution, and instead of throwing tea, they throw colonies.
wow, that's pretty good. Although it reminds me of how much when I watch Origin and it comes up to the scene that reproduces the act of sending the colony down, like that was like gut wrenching. Like uh, just because you know what's happening, the characters don't.
And I'm glad that they did that, because I think that from the get-go in 0079, you really don't understand the gravity of what they did. It's kind of
I see what you
just
did there.
the year is 0079 and, of the
Yeah.
universal century, and they talk about this stuff. It's very like disconnected, and there's no pathos that goes along with it. In Origin, you kind of get a little bit more of that, and it's like, oh wow, this was actually a really horrible thing that they did.
Yeah, it's like you watch Gundam and it's like the colony dropped and almost destroyed everyone. Oh, look at Haro. Haro was repairing Haro. And it's like, what about this colony that dropped?
um but yeah, I just needed to plug in our little reactor here so that we can show off the mono eye that lights up. Will it focus? Maybe not. Let's pull it back a little bit here. So yeah,
Right.
there's our reactive coil here. I actually went out and purchased a larger induction coil, so I'll be able to get this light up effect from further away. But
Oh, nice.
that is what we've got going on in the mono eye. Do we
Looks
necessarily
good.
have to use a red one? We could maybe try. I think that one's actually a dud. We could try a
Oh,
blue light. I don't know if that's actually not showing up blue. It's kind of looking green on camera.
hmm.
Interesting. But yeah, I mean, we can pop any kind of light that we need to. Just hollowed out. The inside of the kit is hollow anyway, so we just kind of find a place to
Well,
mount it in there. And
I don't know the size, but I just got an idea of putting them kind of, I guess, at the base or of a beam saber. You might have to modify the beam saber a bit, but that could be an idea.
yeah, that's not a bad idea at all. I think it would
Yeah.
probably work a little bit better with a master grade than a high grade, but
Ah, do the size. Yep.
and one thing that I'm planning on testing out, I need to get my hands on some copper wire, but I'm curious about whether or not I can daisy chain lights together in order to extend the range. So that's probably going to be my next Gunpla experiment video.
Well, let me know on that one because I had to learn that when I was putting LEDs in my Robot Spirits white base hanger, and I
Really?
had to buy a capacitor that would be in between each light. That way, it could evenly distribute the power, I guess. Um,
So yeah, I mean that's basically exactly my thinking. Is I'm thinking to myself, if I put LED lights in the feet of this model kit, and obviously we've got the induction coil mounted in the inside of whatever display base I'm using. Can I daisy chain some of these lights together in order to light up the entire body using just the
that would
one
be sick.
wireless piece, as opposed to having to have multiple induction coils?
Yeah. No, that's a great idea.
But I think that we are probably approaching the end of our broadcast this evening.
No,
I wasted a little
that's
bit
all
of
right.
our time in the beginning, kind of going through some stuff that just some housekeeping stuff, and obviously we had some technical difficulties. But yeah, was there anything that you wanted to mention in particular before signing off?
No, not really. I can't wait to get to the point where I'm doing this stuff myself. I would put LEDs in everything, if I could.
That's kind of where I'm at now. I'm like, you know what?
Yeah.
Now that I see that there's a different and easy way to do them, obviously I would love to, because this is the only time I've ever really messed with LEDs is the wireless induction style. But it would be
Hmm.
interesting to, um, you know, have multiple forms of LEDs. I think it would be pretty cool. And, again, to bring it back around to tabletop, what if you had a puzzle where, you have your D&D map, right? And you've got your minis and you're kind of moving parts and pieces around, and some of the pieces happen to have those LEDs in them, to where part
Mm.
of the puzzle is that you have to get the part to light up. And you
Yeah,
can
that's actually pretty cool.
you can kind of see how, like, the further away from it, you kind of get like, it's kind of like the hot and cold, like, oh, you're
Yeah.
getting warmer. So like, that would be a pretty cool puzzle to. Obviously, it only works for in-person D&D, which is not as popular these days due to viruses
Oh,
of an
yeah.
unspecified origin. But I think it'd be pretty cool to mess around with.
Yeah.
That's part of the great. That's obviously the greatest thing about these types of hobbies, and these crafting and things like that, is that you get so much application out of just minor technologies. And that's always been my goal, is
Yeah.
to kind of share, hey, here's this thing that I found online, and here's how I'm going to make a Gunpla with it.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. That's what I love learning about this whole thing, because I build a Gunpla and I just want to do more to it because I know it's possible.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Don't forget, down in the description below, Gundam Explained YouTube channel. We are going to be live tomorrow night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 p.m. Central. So you'll be able to catch us. Any hints as to what we might be talking about tomorrow, Adam?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and say it right now. There's apparently going to be a new Verka Master Grade announced. And so I think it would be fun to kind of go through what ones they've already created and kind of guess what the next one would be. So that will be part of the show. Yeah.
That'll be interesting. Yeah, we'll definitely have to throw a poll up and see what the most popular options are. I've heard
Oh,
some
yeah.
out of left field things over on my Discord server that I'm happy to share with you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, don't forget to join both the Gundam Explained Discord server and, of course, the Midnight Hatter Discord server if you're interested in Gundam 5e and that sort of thing. Like I mentioned, I'm probably restructuring the Patreon a little bit, in addition to how we've kind of restructured the show, where it's like, yeah, the video game stuff isn't really as popular. Maybe we should gear more of our content towards Gundam 5e. And in some small way, we are doing that coming soon. At the risk of sounding even more cryptic than I usually do. So, yeah, with that, I think I'm going to sign off and, go feed the baby, do all the good dad things that I'm supposed to be doing instead of playing with my toys in
Oh,
the
yeah.
basement.
Yeah.
But thank you as always for joining me, Adam, and I can't wait to
Oh, yeah.
have some more guests on. We've got some of that stuff in the works as well, so I'm looking forward to talking more Gunpla stuff, more hobby stuff with more qualified professionals than myself. So
Yep.
yes, don't forget, links in the description to all of the materials that I was using this evening. Link in the description to Gundam Explained, both Discord and on YouTube. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your evening, a most excellent rest of your week, and see you tomorrow.
Yep. See you guys.
All right, cheers.